Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, it was offensive line day, so always a good day when it's offensive line interview day, because I don't know what it is about offensive linemen, but it feels like there's a good percentage of them who are like inordinately good interviews.
Yeah, and I was thinking I'm going to try to name them all, but no. Basically, we talked to, I think, everybody but Taker Shabola was about the way it went, including Tyler Bowen, the new offensive line coach. But we got the 3 freshmen, we got the 2 transfers, Carson Hinzman, Luke Montgomery, Joshua Padilla, the Armstrong brothers.
Carter Lowe?
Carter Lowe, well, he's a freshman.
Yes, okay, yeah.
So, but I just wanted to correct you there.
It wasn't a correction. I didn't say anything wrong.
Let me start off with Devontae Armstrong, because
go ahead and tell everyone, is he the guard or is he the tackle?
This is the guard, Devontae Armstrong. If you see them together, he's maybe just a smidge shorter. The problem is, Tom, I'm at table 3, and we saw an Armstrong, one of the Armstrong brothers, getting ready for table 3, but we don't know which one. And Mike Basford, one of the SIDs, is there, and I figure he'll let us know which one. And before Devontae got to the table, Mike walks off. And so then Devontae sits down, and before I got a chance to be like, so, who are you?
Yeah.
Jerry Emick from 30 yards away was like, and Devontae Armstrong's down at the goal line. I'm like, thank you, Jerry. Now we know who we're talking with. But yeah, he would at least understand being like, who are you?
Yes.
What is your name?
Yes. Yeah. That's not as insulting as it would be for other,
Like later on, Jake Cook comes over and I'm like, who are you?
Yeah, no, come on now.
No, and we got to talk to him. All of the freshmen were really impressive.
Yeah, the freshmen were really impressive. And I will, since you brought up Jake Cook, I will mention right now, Carson Hinzman, very high on Jake Cook. He's talked about him having a lot of flexibility, very impressive at this young stage, but, a lot of work to go. But that might have been an unsolicited question, response about how he's doing. So thought that was interesting since you brought him up. But yeah, it's this is a group where you have so many potential answers, but there's not a definitive answer. One of the most interesting things that I think we got out of this was, okay, not who are you. Where are you working right now? Where are you spending the most of your time? Because it felt like there were lots of different ways they could have shuffled this through. And as much as they've talked about cross-training guys, that's true of some people. I think the newer guys especially, they're trying to give them a spot, and you stay in that spot, and you just worry about that right now, and we'll worry about cross-training you later. Ethan Onianwa, who talked about the fact that he's been working solely at left tackle, just at left tackle. And that was something where it was possible, hey, maybe they're going to look at him at a couple. No, he's going to be at left tackle, which, that makes sense. For now, yes, for now. All of this is with the implied, and the season is still, how many days away? That's a different show. So we don't have to worry about how many days.
No gimmick infringement here.
No, but I think that's that makes sense. You're coming into a new program, you're learning a new offense. You're facing a different level of competition, coming from Rice, as Onianwa did, to Ohio State. No offense to the Rice defensive ends, whoever they may be, that's not Kenyatta Jackson across from you at practice. So there's a lot you're adjusting to here at Ohio State. So if you don't have to also play multiple positions and try and adjust to that, to eat the elephant one bite at a time.
Speaking of adjustment, we're going to kind of go all over the board here. Philip Daniels talked about the adjustment to Ohio State. He's like, I got here. It's like, I see Jelani Thurman, wow. And then Jeremiah Smith, and you're like, wow. And then Kenyatta Jackson, you're like, wow. That was, you want to be like, you're going to have to play against these people and with these people.
Yeah.
But it's also, then he's talking about, working against Kenyatta Jackson, Caden Curry. It's like, if you can block those guys, then you're going to be able to fit in. But yeah, overall, that was one of the first questions I was asking players, okay, where are you working? So Javon McFadden is at right guard, Jake Cook's at left guard, Carter Lowe's at left tackle. Austin Seerveld is working all over the place, basically everywhere except for center. We know Carson Hinzman's at center. I didn't get to
Josh Padilla is exclusively at center.
Okay, and then I didn't get to Deontay Armstrong. Is he at left tackle or right tackle? I don't know.
He was at. Do you know, Kevin?
I think we just mostly. I don't know if we talked about.
Yeah.
Okay.
But he's trying to get a feel, and I liked how somebody asked Tyler Bowen, the offensive line coach, do you have a starting five? I don't want to go there yet. Could you name one starter on this offensive line? I'm not going to go there yet. It's like, can you name a single person? I'm not comfortable doing that right now.
Name one football player ever.
No. Don't want to do that.
Well, and it's still early, and you've got guys who you would assume, for example, Carson Hinzman came in the middle of last year out of nowhere, and I want to talk about Carson Hinzman because he had a fascinating line, but he came in out of nowhere and then looked great at center, wins the national championship. Josh Padilla talked about the fact that he feels like, okay, now he's up to 300 pounds. Now he feels like he's ready to play. Like he can contribute, he can play. So, you don't want to be like, nope,
yeah,
maybe next year, kid. So that's I think part of that. Part of that. You don't want to make any firm declarations because you don't want to breed any chance of complacency
no.
here. You've got the national championship you're already trying to sort of overcome on that front. You don't want to give anyone else a reason to feel complacent. The line from Carson Hinzman was, quote, "I've been blessed with a lot of adversity," which I thought, man, that's a great line. That's not the way you typically look at adversity. He said earlier, he'd faced a lot of adversity, but that's what I needed. He looked like he was like maybe going to take on a bigger role at the beginning of last season, and then just kind of he was caught up in the illness stuff that was going on last summer, and that kind of screwed his season up a little bit. And then he was just sort of this forgotten man for most of the season, and you bring in Seth McLaughlin, and Seth McLaughlin wins the Remington Award, and so of course you're going to sit behind the Remington Award winner. And then when Seth McLaughlin blows out his Achilles, all of a sudden, congratulations, you're playing now. And he went into guard, then he went over at center, and he had this bizarre journey. It was not outside of Donovan Jackson, I think he might have had he might have even had a weirder season than Donovan Jackson in terms of like being in all sorts of different positions.
Especially if you throw in the Cotton Bowl from his redshirt freshman year, where he's not a part of it after starting all regular season at center as a redshirt freshman, and then it's like you're no longer playing. Oh, then I'm going to have an off season where I'm an Iron Buckeye.
Yeah.
And then here, doing that while knowing we're trying to give your job to Seth McLaughlin.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that dude has been through it all. I've said before, like, Josh Fryer is the perfect Buckeye because he stuck it out and he got better and then he played. Carson Hinzman, like, you can, now that Josh Fryer's out of here, Carson Hinzman is the perfect Buckeye because of everything he's been through and gone through and, like, put up with, accepted, and persevered through. So that guy, he's a good dude. He's always a good interview too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he would have one more year, right?
Yeah,
he would have one more year after this because I was thinking like he's someone who you could potentially talk about in terms of the Blocko as a senior. It would probably not be this year. It might be if he's just the journey that he took to get there, and that is not the. They have the graphic where it's like, you have the easy path, and then there's the one where you're kind of like scaling a mountain. Like he has done everything on hard mode, but he has gotten himself to a point where he was the starting center on the national championship winning team, and didn't do it the traditional way, but did ultimately get there.
Yeah, definitely a leader on this team now.
Yeah. He said he was enjoying working with Tyler Bowen and the whole crew of new offensive line coaches because he said it's a new set of eyes on me and they're exposing new things I need to work on, which is like good. That's the kind of stuff that's, what's the opposite of complacency? All the stuff Carson Hinzman said.
I don't know if that's the book definition.
Right there. Merriam and Webster both agree. I don't know what to tell you.
See Carson Hinzman.
Yes.
2022 through 2025. That's something I'll be writing about is the new offensive line staff, like the 4 offensive line coaches, including I think a GA, and how, because I was asking all of the guys what's like having so much feedback, and it's like and then I asked Tyler Bowen, like, how do you make sure that feedback is consistent? Because that was one of the things that either Javen McFadden or Devontae Armstrong said, like, you will get the same message from all four of those guys. Like, you can call them up, or it's at practice, after practice, they're going to tell you the same thing. One guy's not going to say one thing, and it's different than what the other guy said. And I asked Tyler Bowen about it, and he's like, before the season, they've decided this is how we're going to coach this blocking, this is how we're going to coach this kind of block, this is how we're going to coach this kind of step. And they go over all of that so that it is all being taught the same. Like, any kind of new math or, whatever, it's like they're all teaching the same kind of math. And it's working, and that you're also able to get, you talked about, you can give them live feedback. Like, and it's just, like Tyler Bowen has said, I can't see all of it, but as a collective we can, and we can give feedback to a player on one particular rep. So the next rep, he has changed it, and that allows them to coach better, coach faster, and get guys more important reps.
Yeah, and one of the guys who's getting important reps this spring is Ethan Onianwa, who is, I mentioned him earlier, the transfer from Rice. He said he came to Ohio State because he wanted to continue to develop, because he was a potentially like a second round kind of NFL draft pick, and he was asked, did Ohio State, when you went into the portal, did Ohio State reach out to you, or did you reach out to Ohio State? He said, I reached out to Ohio State. Like, he sought out Ohio State, and he was asked, how'd you know you were going to be good enough to play at Ohio State? He said, I didn't know. I was hoping. He said he did a lot of praying, but he came and it felt like that was a good fit for both parties there. He was someone who, I think was it Ryan Day earlier in the spring was asked about him coming in at 350 pounds or whatever it was, and it was just kind of like, well, that's not going to work. And he is down to 335 right now.
Came in at, I think he said 365.
365, yes. So, yeah, he's at 335 now. And the question was, okay, how'd you do that? And he said, more protein, fewer carbs. So, but yeah, he's and is exclusively working at the left tackle spot. But, if you're willing to turn down second round NFL draft pick money, like, I'm sure he has a nice NIL deal. He's not getting second-round NFL draft pick money out of an NIL deal. So you really are making that decision. This is not one of those like, Mike Hampton going to the Rockies because, we like the school systems. Like, yeah, okay. But it's not, very, very clearly you would have made more money turning pro now. So you very clearly, this is something you can sort of think through, and your nonsense detector does not go off. It's like, okay, yeah, this actually makes sense. And if you're coming in, then boy, that means you're willing to do the work. You're willing to drop the 30 pounds. You're willing to put in the extra work. Because just going from a second round pick to a first round pick, boy, that makes a big difference in terms of what your contract looks like. And if you're the starting left tackle for Ohio State and you have a first team All Big Ten, All American type season, which he certainly could, boy, that's going to bump up your draft stock quite a bit a year from now.
Yeah, and he's seen Josh Simmons come in and work himself into a first-round pick, most likely, even after an injury this year. Phillip Daniels has also talked about losing like 5 pounds, and he's like, I didn't think I needed to do it, but then I did it, and it's like, I was moving fast. I'm like, really, 5 pounds? You're moving faster? But Carter Lowe he came in at like 341. That's what he was originally listed at. True freshman, now down to 321. So they're getting them shaped the way they want. And, but overall, an impressive and deep group from what I've seen. And as we said, it's always a bunch of talkers in this group. And even the freshmen, they're ready to go. Yeah.
I did like Carter Lowe when he talked about being down to 321. He said, well, traveling around with the college football playoff is on the road. I gained a little bit of weight. And I was like, extremely same.
Yes,
extremely
So
same.
relatable.
Been right there with you. And Carter Lowe also right now just working at left tackle. That was one of the other.
And that's the thing with the freshmen. They don't want to move them around. They just want them at one spot, learn that, and then go from there. But the thing that all of these guys saw, even the transfers, because they're aware, is Ohio State started 9 different guys last year. So there's going to be an opportunity, and that's all of the cross training is being done for a reason, so that they can step in wherever, whomever, and it's a lot easier to teach that when it's like, just look at last year's lesson. It's right there. Everybody saw it. We're not telling, this is no longer a theory, it's testimony, as they like to say around here. And everybody has bought into that.
Yeah, and I think you've seen that not only in terms of benefiting the team, which, Like, it benefited the team a whole lot to have Donovan Jackson be willing to kick out from guard to tackle last year. It also benefited Donovan Jackson quite a bit to kick out from guard to tackle and put out some good film, because then you become, okay, it's not just, well, we think this guy might be able to do this. It's like, no, this guy just did this, and this guy just did this at the highest levels of the sport and did it well. If you could put that on film, boy, that's going to make you some money too. And I don't know if he's going to be a first-round pick or a second-round pick, but he's, I would assume his draft stock is substantially higher than it was 6 months ago. And you've got all these other guys who now have seen that and have seen, you can do that, and you can help yourself, you can help the team, you can potentially win a national championship. I mean, all of that stuff is, that's a long laundry list of reasons why, the stuff the coaches are asking you to do. Like, yeah, there's a reason for it, and you should consider doing it.
Yeah, I mean, if you just ignore what happened last year, not wise, and certainly they're building up for that. And even, not even planning for injuries, just planning for a long season. Like, we want to play a bunch of guys. I don't know if they're going to be rotating guys again. Tyler Bowen talked about Austin Seerveld as a luxury, as a swing guy. And this is maybe a little similar to Carson Hinzman, who goes and becomes an Iron Buckeye. And it's like, well, what's your spot? It's like, well, I don't know, because some transfers came in, and it's probably not left tackle, even though that's where I started out. What Austin Seerveld did say is, like, I know there will be a spot for me. Mm-hmm. So when you've got that kind of attitude and that kind of mentality, then, boy, you can work with that. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be at this spot every day, and that's where you are. And if it doesn't work out, then you go sulk. Like, he can do so much of what you need. Maybe a little bit like Luke Montgomery, who, again, another guy, didn't play last year until towards the end of the season, even though he was battling for a starting job. So just really interesting to watch this group that maybe has, like, big goals, but then those goals almost go away for months at a time. Mm-hmm. And then when they're called upon, like, they're ready. Ryan Day calls it competitive excellence. Mm-hmm. And these guys showed that last year. I expect them to show it again this year.
Well, and I think they've also sort of established now that it's not, you're playing your best five, but your best five are not the only ones who are going to play. They played 3 guards in the college football playoff. I think all 4 games they played 3 guards. And if you're willing to do that in the college football playoff, I'm pretty sure you're going to be willing to do that against Grambling and Purdue and Ohio University and everyone else. So there are going to be opportunities, and I think you also now have a year where guys have gone through that 16-game gauntlet and are seeing the benefit of all the stuff they did with the running backs last year. Boy, you gave up a lot of carries. Boy, you gave up all these individual. How did that work out for you? Well, it worked out pretty darn well. They both were major contributors, had long runs where they looked fresher than everyone on the defense during the semifinal and the national championship game. And now they're both going to get drafted in the first couple rounds probably of the NFL draft. So you have that as sort of, that's something we talk about a lot in terms of the running backs, but I think that's something you're going to see a bunch in terms of the offensive line. If they're willing to do that, and you have all this talent, you actually have the depth in the offensive line room that you haven't had a bunch in previous years. Well, that's a pretty good luxury, and you can take advantage of that in a bunch of ways, because we've done this whole show. I don't think either of us have said Ian Moore's name yet.
Yeah.
Now, Ian Moore was not at the table I was at, but he's someone who he's certainly in the mix at that right tackle spot. Philip Daniels is in the mix at that right tackle spot. You've got Austin Seerveld might be in the mix at that right tackle spot. You've got, so that's 3 guys right there who are, like, potentially good enough to play right now. And you're going to end up seeing a bunch of those guys because, you want to keep them happy, but you also want to keep them fresh. And you want to have all these guys, really, truly ready to just sort of, when they say next man up, just be able to go, okay, 1 step forward, go.
Yeah, and it'll be, I expect them to be able to do that because they do have quite a bit of talent. The last thing for me, when Ethan Onianwa, who gets to the table and a television person asks, can you pronounce your name into the microphone? And I said, it's Ethan.
There's a very famous story on among the Mets podcasts where you remember Jerry's Familia, who was the closer for the 2015 NL championship. They swept the Cubs that year. I'm not sure if you remember. There's a beat reporter who goes in and when he's in Double-A and he's just trying to get his figure out how to say his first name because Jay Reese is not exactly common. And he reaches out his hand and introduces himself, and Jairus Familia says, "I'm Familia." And it's like, that didn't help at all. But yes, I was still getting set up, so I did not record in time. I believe he said Onianwa.
Yes.
So that's why I've been saying
Yep.
Onianwa. Yes.
Yep.
So
Anything else from today?
that was all I had on my list. I did real quickly talk to Kevin Noon for the morning show about the commitment of Simeon Caldwell, safety / linebacker. You wrote about him a little bit, so you can find a story about that at BuckeyeHuddle.com, and then you can also find a Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning episode with Kevin and I talking about that, and also talking about some very big news involving Chris Henry this week.
Yeah.
Chris Henry Jr.
Is that right?
Yes.
It's been a pretty good week for Matt Guerreri, coaching and recruiting safeties at Ohio State. But do want to thank you all for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, please go ahead and give this a thumbs up. We would appreciate it. And of course, continue to find us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. So thank you all for tuning in, and we'll talk to you guys later.